Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, which is Explore Yourselves, Banking and General Knowledge, etc. Memoir of my banking journey by Mr. V.H. Ramakrishnan, retired General Manager of Bank of India. Episode number 43. The chapter A Banking Journey begins. It's completed. A new chapter is my days in head office. The link of earlier episodes is available in description. My days in head office. Visits to Singapore. So the day came when I was visiting Singapore for the first time in my official capacity. Head office travel department took care of all travel arrangements. I landed in the morning. Mr. Naik had sent his car and a local officer to receive me at the airport. The conference was to commence at 10 a.m. Nayak had insisted that I should stay with him. He dropped me at the conference at 9:45 a.m. I remembered the conference for many things. Non-resident Indians had come from all parts of the world. The conference was held in the big auditorium. Mr. Lee Hsien-loong, who is now the Prime Minister, was a minister at that time and inaugurated the conference. Halfway through his speech, the mic system failed. It was restored within a few minutes. He smiled and said, "We are supposed to be a technologically advanced country, but we also face these problems." The quality of his speeches were quite high. People followed the time schedule given to them. Many of the talks were laced with humor. One of the speakers was the internationally famous management guru C.K. Prahlad. Readers may remember about my writing about him in my series My Experience as Branch Manager. I have to briefly repeat the same. We were college mates in Loyola College, Chennai, and were staying in Thagaraya Nagar. We used to take a local train from Nugambakkam to Mambalam station. For about 3 months, we used to chat and walk together till we reached his house. That was a daily routine. Then my father shifted to Egmore and we used to meet at the college. After doing pre-university course, he joined Annamalai University to do graduation and continued in Loyola. We lost contact. I was happy to see him as a speaker. Then I met him on the sidelines and confirmed that he was the same person with whom I shared my walk from the station. But there was no friendly excitement from him. I realized that he had moved on in life. Anyway, I was happy to have met him after many years. Our lunch was arranged in a big hall. I was surprised to find that it was not a buffet, a sit down lunch. There were round tables. A table could accommodate about 8 persons. They had put our names on the table. It was arranged in such a way that people from different walks of life could be on one table. On my table, there was one Tamil businessman from Malaysia. We all exchanged our cards. It was interesting to see how quickly the delegates got into conversations and tried to establish business contacts. That was a different experience. Technical sessions were held in different rooms after the lunch. I chose those that were of interest to me. It also taught me the importance of knowing and remembering about various economic developments in India. Luckily, I had studied and carried with me a small pocket book giving important statistics about our country. It was a book you could really carry in our cold pocket. It was an annual publication from Retd. The conference was over in 2 days. On the third day, I visited the branch. Besides Naik, I met two more officers who were well known to me. Mr. V. Rajaraman was the accountant of the branch. He was with me in Bank of India Fin before he was selected for Singapore. Another officer was DG Pattabardhan, who was in charge of Information Technology Department. He was with me in Delhi. Both these officers rose to become general managers in our bank. Rajaraman invited me to his house for dinner, a delicious South Indian dinner prepared by Mrs. Rajaraman. Rajaraman was a cool and calm person with brilliant analytical skill. Many of you might have known him as the GM in charge of credit at the head office. More about him later as we work together at HO. I would only say for now that he became a dear friend and continues to be so even now. During my Chennai trips post-retirement, I invariably met Madhavan and Rajaraman over dinner, and if there is no time for that, we at least try to have a sip of coffee at coffee day. Nayak briefed me in detail about the working of the branch. He took me around the branch and introduced me to the entire staff. I would say that it was like a branch of our bank in India, but more disciplined, high caliber of local officers and clerks. Mr. Nayak had a Chinese lady clerk as his secretary who was excellent in follow-up of matters. In a lighter vein, I would say that people were more scared of her than Mr. Nayak. I remember one lady clerk called Mano, a Tamilian. It was very interesting to listen to her talking in Tamil with a peculiar but musical accent. I met her again during my later visits to the branch. Mr. Naik arranged a luncheon meeting with India-based officers at the branch itself. The delicious food was ordered from the famous Kamala Villas. I think it was the first South Indian vegetarian restaurant started in Singapore, and all visitors from Tamil Nadu would make it a point to visit that restaurant. My police offer. Normally, officers should take care of their assigned work and go home, but I did something abnormal. I have to give you the background. I had mentioned in my earlier chapters about my close relationship with P.S. Sinoy, whom I knew from 1968. He was my joint general manager for 2 years in Delhi. He became a GM in the next batch after me. Because of the creations of additional posts, my juniors were able to catch up with me first. When I landed in Mumbai, Sinoy was GM in charge of many departments like private sector, treasury, comptrollers, planning, subsidiaries, and perhaps a couple of more departments. His table was full of files, and he used to work extra hours to cope with the volume. On the other hand, with international and FBT under me, I could finish my work with ease. I felt I could afford to take up some more work. I felt Sinoy was overloaded. I went to Mr. Katuria one day and told him that Sinoy was having too much work. I said I could afford to take up some of the work looked after by Sinoy. I said I have no preference for any particular department. The CMD could decide what work should be allotted to me. Mr. Katuria smiled and said it would be do well for Sinoy to handle that much volume of work. In other words, he did not give me any additional work. Next day morning at the coffee meeting, Mr. Katuria said in his loud voice, Ramakrishnan says he does not have any work. He did not mention about my offer to take some work from Sinoy. Everyone looked at me with surprise. For a moment I felt very embarrassed at being quoted out of context, though I made a feeble protest by clarifying that what I said was my desire to take up more work. No one was listening to me. The matter did not end there. About 3 weeks later, Mr. Kataria called me on intercom and said, Ramakrishnan, you have been saying that you do not have any work. I thought, not again. I tried to protest mildly, but he continued, so I want you to join me in the interview committee for promotion from scale 4 to 5. We have to travel to 3 or 4 centers. On hearing this, I was just thrilled. I readily accepted the assignment. What an experience it would be in the same committee along with the CMD. I will write about those experiences separately. No, the matter had not ended. A couple of weeks after we completed the interviews, Mr. Kataria called me on to his cabin. He told me, Ramakrishnans, you were right about Mr. Sinoy. He is having too much work, so I would like you to take up private sector departments from him. I gladly agreed. Within an hour, this was implemented. I got call from the DGM of the department that they were happy to report to me. Even with the addition of private sector, I could manage my work without any strain. However, about 3 months there was some reshuffling of portfolios and the private sector went to some other GM. In retrospect, I used to wonder whether what I did was right, but I benefited by getting an opportunity to be in the interview team and observe Mr. Katuria at close quarters. I would also like to add that Sinoy never knew about my offer to take some work from him. I did not discuss with him because he would have prevented me from going to the CMD. Tailpiece. In one of the board meetings chaired by Mr. Katuria, the board secretary was trying to fix the next date of the meeting. One of the directors, a lady, suddenly suggested that we should hold our next meeting in Tirupati. Mr. Katuria quipped, Madam, even to see God, you want to go at the bank's expenses. You should spend your money to see God. He told this laughingly, and everyone joined him in his laughter, but the message was clear. Interviewing experience. Mr. Katuria was a qualified clinical psychologist, so I was looking forward to joining him for the interviews. The CMD never asked technical questions on banking. He would always try to assess the ability of the candidate to shoulder higher responsibilities. The candidate could never anticipate what question the CMD would ask. He once asked a candidate to give him three reasons as to why he should not be promoted. In fact, I used this question when I interviewed Nupur Mitra. I had mentioned this while writing about her. The CMD would not dominate the interview. He would allow us to talk, ask whatever we wanted. Sometimes I would brief him about the achievements of the candidate if I knew him or her well. He laid down two ground rules. One was that whoever got more than a particular percentage in APR, average 3 years, should not be denied the promotion. His logic was that he should be a good officer to get such high rating, and not answering a couple of questions in the interview should not stop him from getting promoted. Second thing, he did not want to put any result in a closed cover. If any vigilance case was pending, he thought it may take a long time for them to get clearance. Once it happened that we could not promote a well-deserving candidate as some investigations was going on. I did not know the officer earlier. So after the process was over, I called him to my cabin and asked him about the investigations. He had absolutely no clue about the same. It was something related to his earlier assignment in Madhya Pradesh. I told him he had lost his promotions because of that. I advised him to immediately get the issue sorted out. He did that and the matter was closed because of his follow-up. In the next interview, he got through and ultimately rose to the positions of general manager of the bank. Mr. Katodia never hesitated to give appointment even to skilled four officers who were working outside and whom we did not know. Once, when I entered his cabin, I found him chatting with an officer who was from a zone outside Mumbai. I knew him from the time he was working in South. He met me after meeting the CMD and told me that in the previous elections he was not promoted from 4 to 5. So he came to make an oral representation to the CMD. I appreciate his courage in approaching the CMD. He said the CMD gave a patient hearing and had promised to do his best. Later on, I made some inquiries as to why the officers lost. It appeared he entered into an argument with the general manager at the managers' conference. The GM was annoyed. He showed his anger while writing the APR. I was in the interview committee when this officer appeared next time. I gave this background to Mr. Katuria. In the interview, I made him narrate the incident. He was promoted and rose to become an executive director of a bank. We are interviewing candidates in Delhi. One candidate came from Agra. I normally used to ask the candidates to tell us about the places they had served. In this case, it turned out he went out of Agra for only 1 year and again had come back recently. I was asking him as to how come he never went out of his home zone. He tried to justify his getting back to Agra. Suddenly, Mr. Katoria told him, Why are you trying to justify? He then told me, Look, his uncle is known to me well. He only requested me to get him back to Agra. I had to oblige him. It is this bluntness in Mr. Katoria which I liked. Sometimes he would finish the interviews very quickly. Readers may remember his interviewing Mrs. Nagarajan. The interview was over even before she took her seat. Directorship in overseas companies. By virtue of my being GM International, I was nominated as the director of Commonwealth Finance Limited and Indo-Zambia Bank Limited. Commonwealth Finance Limited was based in Hong Kong and was owned by Arjun Melwani's family. I knew Arjun Melwani from my Nigerian days. He had settled down in Hong Kong and started a finance company. During Mr. Bhagul's time, he requested Bank of India to manage the company. RBI gave its consent for the same. The managing director and another officers were deputed from Bank of India. Interestingly, this arrangement continues even now. Indo-Zambia Bank, as I had mentioned earlier, was a joint venture between Bank of India and Bank of Baroda, Central Bank of India, and the government of Zambia. The managing director's position was held by each bank by rotations. Two officers from each bank were also deputed to the bank. Each bank was represented on the board by their GM International. Within a couple of months of my taking over the department, I received the invitation for the board meeting. At that time, one Mr. Mehta, who was earlier manager of Ballard State Branch, was the managing director. The tickets were booked via Johannesburg, where we had to stay overnight at the airport hotel and then catch a Zambian Airways flight. I was quite happy to go to Africa after a gap of 7 years. One Mr. Sethi from Bank of Baroda and a Parsi gentleman from Central Bank of India joined me. We are very well taken care of our hosts. The meeting was conducted in a professional manner. It was just like my board meetings in Nigeria. The bank had a non-executive chairman. The bank was making a very good profit. Government securities are giving very good yield. Managing officers from these three different banks was always a problem for the chief executives. We did not go for any sightseeing. I had planned to return via Nairobi so that I could visit our Kenya branches. Visiting Nairobi after 12 years was quite exciting. Mr. S. S. Rao was the chief executive. I was pleasantly surprised when Pravin Shah, son of Mr. Andy Shah, about whom I had written in my Kenyan safari, came to the airport to receive me. Andy Shah had passed away after I left Kenya in 1984. Of course, Rao was there to receive me. When I entered the branch, I was overwhelmed by the love and affection shown by the local staff. They were doubly happy when I greeted them in Swahili. When I entered the advanced department, my typist Umi Noor, who was still in the same seat, screamed with happiness and rushed towards me and hugged me. It was with great difficulty I extricated myself. I was taken aback because I had never seen her exhibiting such emotions during my tenure. She would never talk with anyone except for official purpose. Very quiet and efficient worker. I was really touched by the affections. My sub-staff came and sat at my feet and started crying. I had to pacify him. Mukiti, who was my favorite clerk in credit department, was later promoted as an officer, but he was dismissed by the bank when I fraud took place. That was after I left. He was considered negligent, but my conscience said he was not guilty. When he heard that I was in town, he came and met me. It was another emotional scene. I gave him some dollars which I was carrying. Anyway, he said, Mr. S.L. Jai, ex-Bank of India officer of 60s, was running a successful industry, had promised to take him in his office. I was quite happy. Rao hosted a cocktail party at his residence and invited all the important customers and ex-Bank of India officers who were working in other banks. It was very well attended. I felt very happy to meet many of our customers whom I knew very well. Nairobi had changed a lot. Rao took me to a very big mall. We also went to the new temple complex. Rao told me that there were more than 25 Indian restaurants in Nairobi. He also said that customers rarely hosted dinners at home. They always host in a restaurant. I accepted two invitations. One was from Manjit Singh Oberoi, about whom I had written in my Kenyan safari, who hosted a typical Punjabi lunch at his house. Another from Pravin Shah, again a lunch at his house where I met Mr. Bhatt, who was earlier manager of Mombasa branch in 1979 and then was in charge of loans department at Bombay office. Many other ex-Bank of India officers called on me at Rao's residence. That included Saigal, MP Sastry, and D.V. Mehta. I also visited Mombasa branch. It was a day trip. Now the branch was occupying its own premises. The plan was getting finalized during my tenure in Nairobi. Overall, I returned to Mumbai in a happy frame of mind. Tailpiece. When I was interviewed for the post of general manager, Mr. Katuria did not ask me any questions since he had the first-hand knowledge of Northern Zone. Mr. Simudu, the director nominated by RBI, asked me a couple of questions about letter of credit. I had to tell him that I did not know the answer since I had never worked as a line officer in forest department. Once Mr. Dahotre told me that if such questions are asked you, should retaliate by saying, I thought I have come for an interview for general manager's post. Somehow out of respect, Mr. Katuria, I kept quiet. It is a different matter that I was promoted thanks to the CMD. Hong Kong Hot Harbor. Whenever the name of Hong Kong was mentioned, I always reminded of a famous movie called Hong Kong Hot Harbor, which was released during 60s. Quite a few of our Sindhi customers in Nigeria were stationed in Hong Kong. That was one of the reasons for our bank opening a branch there. I was quite happy when I got an invitation for the board meeting of Commonwealth Finance Corporation Limited within a few months of my taking charge. Hong Kong was one of the branches. I had helped a lot during my tenure in Nigeria. I think once in a while I am allowed to boast of my achievements. Not a single bill on Nigeria, whether purchased by the branch or under collections, remained pending. I was also keen to visit Hong Kong branch, which was well managed by my friend K. Subramani. Still, we had one major bad account in the branch for which we were struggling to work out a compromise. The owner was a Sindhi businessman, well known but a top nut. Luckily, I knew his brother-in-law, who was our customer in Nigeria. Landed in Hong Kong by Cathay Pacific. Hong Kong looked like Manhattan multiplied by 10. I landed at the old airport. New airport was under planning. Attended the board meeting, which was held in the office of CFCL. Mr. Kothad Kothandaraman was the chief executive, a very unassuming and simple officer. In fact, he was so good that since the company was not doing well during that time, he voluntarily sacrificed the car allowance and traveled by bus to the office. Later, I told him that there was no need to make such sacrifices, but he had his own principles. Subramani told me that Kothandaraman was very strong in risk management. Later on, when he became a general manager, the bank benefited a lot by his knowledge in risk management. I should also narrate here another episode about Kothandaraman. When he was a DGM or general manager, he was called for an interview for the post of chief executives of an overseas center. He refused to attend the interview because he already had a foreign posting and felt the opportunity should now be given to someone else. He believed that one person should get only one opportunity to go abroad, since there were many deserving officers who never had a posting abroad. When I knew about this, I had retired by this time. I sent him a long email urging him to attend the interview. I told him it was the bank's prerogative to choose the right persons for the right job and he should respect the bank's call. Many other colleagues also advised him to attend the interview. I was told even the then CMD advised him to same. All of us failed. He did not attend. I am quoting this because when it was difficult to get even a call for the interview for the post of chief executive, he had the moral courage to miss the opportunity of not only holding a high positions abroad, but also to earn and save a substantial sum which would have come in handy after retirement. I think it is a unique case in the banking industry. I knew no people have declined foreign postings due to family circumstances, with no such constant Kothandaraman declined as a matter of principle. The nearest case is that of a general manager of a Bank of Baroda. He was very religious and orthodox person. On that score, he declined a foreign posting. I salute Kothandaraman for standing firm in his belief. Post-retirement, he has been teaching banking at the Tyagaraja Institute of Management, Madurai, headed by an ex-IIM Ahmedabad professor. I felt very proud when Mr. S.N. Anatha Subramanian, post-president of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, was full of praise for Kothandaraman and his banking expertise. Kothandaraman was assisted by P.K. Biswas, who later became a general manager of the bank and headed by our bank in Indonesia. He was also the managing director of Bank of India Shareholding Limited and did a commendable job. Back to Hong Kong. Melwani took me to a Thai restaurant for lunch. It was like eating in a Kerala restaurant. Coconuts were added to most of the dishes. After lunch, I visited the branch. It had more than half a dozen India-based officers, both on regular assignments and also as trainees. Mr. C. Chandrasekhar was his number two. Later on, at the suggestion of Mr. Vide, our then CMD, We sent him for a training in treasury management and posted him as our AGM in treasury. More about him later. I also remember having met Munir Alam, who was in charge of deposits and later became a general manager and chief executive of Singapore branch. Another fine officer, very strong in operations. I called on the top customer's father, who was pretty old and was highly respected by the Sindhi community. I and Subramani were still exploring the possibility of a solution. Mr. Subramani hosted a cocktail party at the Bankers Club, which was well attended. I met Mr. Arunachalam, who came to Hong Kong as an officer of Indian Overseas Bank and later resigned and started his own business. He became a very successful businessman and had operations in other countries also. I had a breakfast meeting with one Mr. Natarajan. Natarajan was an officer of our bank. He was in Sivakasi branch and married my cousin's daughter. My cousin was in Kuwait and was with a UN agency. After marriage, Natarajan quit the job, did his MBA and joined Chase Bank and rose to a high position. He continued to have his love for Bank of India. Very jovial person, he was a good astrologer or a palmist. This talent made him very popular with many top executives of Chase Bank, like our S. Venkatas. That famous NPA account. I had mentioned about the difficult account in Hong Kong. We decided to find a solution. I suggested to the CMD that I should invite Mr. Subramani from Hong Kong to India. The relative of the owner, who was well known to me, also agreed to come to Mumbai. We thought we would sit around the table and arrive at a compromise. CMD agreed. So on the fixed day, we all met without the CMD in a conference room on the 14th floor. From morning to evening, we sat through and talked. We made some progress, but unfortunately, we could not clinch a deal. Our talks had almost broken. I returned home very much disappointed. Next day morning, I went to brief Mr. Katuria. Before I could talk, he smiled at me and said, "So you people could not reach an agreement." We all said bye bye to each other. Don't worry. Mr. X, later of the customer, met me last evening and told me what happened. I have convinced him to agree to your terms with a minor change. He will come at 11 a.m. and you can finalize the deal. I was very happy. It was an example of the leadership of the chairman to clinch the deal, fully protecting the bank's interest. The same day, we finalized and proposal was cleared in the next board meeting. The borrower fulfilled all the terms and the branch was rid of a big problem account. Solution Finder. I had mentioned earlier that there are two types of executives. One who can find a solutions to any problem, another who can find a problem for every solution. Naturally, Mr. Katoria belonged to the first category. I had walked into his room quite a few times with some problems. He would listen to the problem and then would chew the tobacco in his mouth for a while and then would offer a practical solutions. Then he would laugh heartily. Many executives would enter his room with a serious face and return smiling. Once a well-reputed business house in Mumbai offered a building with a very good executive flats to us. It would have fully settled one of their group accounts, which was becoming sticky. They had given a valuation report of a well-reputed architect. I do not clearly remember how I came to handle this matter. The CMD I thought we could finalize the deal since the valuation was done by a well-known firm. I sent it for normal clearance to premises department. They became panicky. Without telling me, they got it valued by one of the approved valuer of the bank, who valued it at a price lower than the one given by the industrial house. The department put everything in writing to protect themselves. I was not quite happy with the attitude of the premises department, who chose to act on their own. I went to the CMD. He saw both the reports. As usual, he smiled and told me, "You do one thing. Send both the reports to another very well reputed firm of architects whose credibility cannot be questioned, and I get a third opinion." I did that. He gave a really professional report and gave a valuation which was lower than the one given by the industrial house but higher than the one given by bank's architect. Everything was well documented. It is a different matter that the deal did not go through due to the time taken by us. The group settled the account by selling the building to someone else. We lost the opportunity to own well-built executives flats in a good locality. Tell peace. Met AAA Rahman at the cocktails hosted by Mr. Subramani in Hong Kong. He was AGM in charge of Mumbai Overseas Branch in 1984. He phoned me when I was in the head office for a few days in 1984, waiting for my prepaid tickets to go to Nigeria. He took me out for lunch at Oberoi with a Sindhi customer who had an office in Nigeria. Raman advised me, have a good time in Nigeria. At the end of the term, you should quit the bank and take up a good job there. I was indeed shocked to hear such an advice from a senior officer of the bank. I just smiled and did not respond. But he was a man of words. He did that after his tenure in Hong Kong as chief executive. An unfortunate incident. I had mentioned that Mr. T.P. Karunanandan (TPK) was the executive director when I reported at the head office. He had come from Indian Bank, a very honest, straightforward executive. Through in his work, a little reserved person, would not indulge in any unnecessary chit-chat, never indulged in playing politics. When he was in Indian Bank, he worked as general manager under Mr. Gopalakrishnan, who faced a lot of problems. There were some accounts which CBI was investigating. There was one proposal which TPK had refused to recommend and put in writing. Later, the department clarified all the points and submitted to him again for his recommendations. Since his queries were satisfactorily answered, he recommended it to the CMD and it was sanctioned. The CBI one day called TPK for interrogations at Mumbai. When he came to know was that the CPI questioned him on reversing his decisions and made him as part of the conspiracy to cheat the bank. The CBI detained him overnight in the office. Under the instructions from Mr. Katoria, Jain Patil, secretary to CMD, went to the CBI office and waited there. In fact, he also spent the night at the CBI office in order to take care of TPK. Later, TPK was taken to Chennai and was in custody until he got bail. Needless to say, he lost his job. Within a couple of years of this incident, he passed away. The case was still in the court. The mental agony was too much for him. When I went to Chennai, I called on Mrs. Karunanandan to convey my condolences. There was a great lesson in the above incidents for all bank executives. Never decline a proposal and then reverse the decision. There are two options. One, raise all your queries without giving a decision about the proposal, then study the reply and take a decision. Two, if you are satisfied, then it is not deserving proposal. Then do not recommend sanction it, but then stick to your stand and never reverse the earlier decision. Acting Executive Director. No ED was appointed by the government since the departure of Mr. Karunanandan. All the papers had to go directly to the CMD from the GMs. Mr. Katoria did a unique thing again, first time in the history of nationalized banks. He wrote to the banking divisions and got approval of the senior most general manager, Mr. R. Nagarajan, to exercise the powers of the executive director. Nagarajan had joined the bank in early 60s as a direct executive officer. He was a gold medalist in BCom from Madras University. He spent more than 25 years in comptroller's department as number 2 and as in charge. He almost became a fixed asset of the department. He was an authority on taxation. He could handle the statutory auditors very well. Once a statutory auditor was annoyed and told Mr. Nagarajan that he would report about him to the Institute of Chartered Accountants. Nagarajan smiled and told him that he could go ahead and report and nothing would happen since he was not a chartered accountant. Many auditors assumed that he was a CA since he was very through with all the acts. He was another executive who could find a solution for any problem. I had personal experience of this emerging ability on a couple of occasions. On both occasions, the bank benefited, but it would not be proper for me to reveal the details. It, in 1990, I was about to replace him, but things took a different turn. That idea was dropped. Later on, he was shifted to Chennai as general manager. He quickly adjusted to the operational banking and earned a very good name. Perhaps his only weakness was he could not say no to anyone. Once convinced, he would go all the way to help a person. After a Chennai stint, he got promoted as a general manager and was in charge of credit card department, which grew multifold under him. Guardian's general manager. There was this concept of guardian general manager in those days. The guardian GM was supposed to be the friend of the Jones allotted to him. If any matter pertaining to the zone was pending at the head office, the ZM would request the help of the guardian GM to get the same cleared. I was allotted southern zones, which suited me very well. The guardian GM was not a controlling authority for the zone. He was expected to visit the zone often and address conference or workshops. During the visits, he was expected to monitor the performance of the zone. I was quite happy since it gave me an opportunity to visit my hometown. Since many of the staff members were known to me, it was easy for me to understand the problems of the zone. The specific achievements of Mr. Katuria. Project appraisal revisions. Looking at the time taken by branches to deal with large project proposals, the CMD created a new project appraisal divisions at head office. Mr. G. Sridhar headed this division. This division directly processed, prepared, and submitted the proposals to the board. Sridhar was qualified engineer with an MTech from IIT. He did a good job. The bank's credit portfolio grew fast. However, the industrial finance branches BBs were not very happy. They felt their domain was taken over by head office. So after Mr. Katodia retired, this department was wound up. This brings to my mind that interesting debate amongst us as to whether the top management should take the initiative to introducing big ticket advances. It is always felt that the branches take care of existing customers and their additional requirements. They rarely take the initiatives to submit new proposals. They always look at the new customer with suspicion. Unless new advances were sanctioned, the credit would not grow. Top businessmen normally approach the chairman and the letter. It satisfies refers them to the general manager in whose jurisdictions it falls. Now the general manager in turn refers them to the industrial finance branch or the nearest branch. The branch would look the proposal with colored glasses as they feel the loan account is forced on them. Since they cannot reject the advances easily, they would try to raise maximum queries to protect themselves. I also remember an incident during the chairmanship of late Mr. K.V. Krishnamurthy. Once a well-known financial consultant was opening a new office in the suburb of Mumbai, and he gave me an invitation to attend the opening function. There were two names printed on the invitation as chief guests. One was the name of a chairman of another nationalist bank, and another was that of Mr. KVK. I did not feel happy about this, so I asked Mr. KVK as to why he permitted his name to be printed on the invitation for a function organized by a financial consultant. He lost his cool and said, "None of you bring any good proposals to the bank. Only good consultants are able to bring new proposals. What is wrong in dealing with them as long as we consider the proposals on merits?" Had seen one thing, even though it is ideal that a proposal should be generated at the bottom and should move to the top. In reality, it does not result in credit growth. Only when the top takes the initiative there is growth. Anyway, I was never in charge of large credit in head office, so people like Madhavan, H.G. Mehta, Rajaram or Aijola may be able to throw more light on this aspect. Tailpiece. When I was the general manager of Northern Zone, I continued as an active Freemason. I was a member of Lodge Chartered Accountants. One of the Freemasons, who was a practicing chartered accountant, came to me one day. He was having an account with our Connaught Circus branch. I knew him very well. He wanted a car loan. I rang up the manager of the Connaught Circus branch and briefed him. He informed me that there would be no problem and I should ask the customers to see him. I forgot about this matter. After about a month, my friend came and told me, "Mr. Ramakrishnan, you had recommended my case with all good intentions, but your credit officers made me visit him 4 times and went on raising queries piecemeal. I did not want to embarrass you and went to Mr. Talwar, CMD of Oriental Bank of Commerce, who later became the Deputy Governor of RBI, whom I knew very well. My job was done within 2 days. To post-retirement, I was living in Bangalore. I came into contact with one auto driver who spoke good Tamil. He had retired from a PSU in Bangalore and bought an auto and was not exactly a full-time auto driver. Let us call him Raja. He owned a small house opposite to our complex. Very decent person. I did not have a car. He used to take me to all the nooks and corners of Bangalore. Ap- After about 5 years of good associations, he told me that he wanted to construct the first floor. He said his house was free of encumbrances and that his son, who was employed in an IT firm, would stand his security. He knew I had retired as GM of Bank of India. I spoke to the branch manager where I had my account. The manager said very enthusiastically, "No problem, sir. Please ask him to see me." I sent Raja to see him. The manager asked him to come after a week. Then he told him to go to zonal office as there was a hub dealing with home loans. Once Raja mentioned my name, the manager of the hub paid special attention and dragged the case for 3 months. Raja made 3 visits just to get the applications form. Then one day Raja told me that since no positive result was forthcoming, he walked into State Bank of India, collected the application form, and loan was sanctioned within 15 days. Raja did not even have an account with State Bank of India. 6 months later, he invited me for this house warming ceremony. I used to wonder whether I should have spoken to the JDM, whom I knew very well, but I thought, why disturb a JDM for a small straightforward matter? Interesting thing is, when I told the branch manager as to what had happened, he also blamed the hub for everything and as the cause for his slow credit growth. The chapter My Days in Head Office is continuing. Thank you very much for your patience. Request for like, subscribe, and share.